Hi kids! So I thought I'd do something a little different today to mark the 300,000 miles of the Honda Element here, this 2003 Honda Element, which I've had for 3.5, 4 years. And I thought I'd go over how I ended up with a Honda Element. Because to be honest with you, when they first came out in 2003, I couldn't stand them. I thought they were the ugliest things ever created. I could not stand them. The trend at the time, which was the Honda Element, things like the Chevy Avalanche pickup truck, the Aztec, with all this plastic going on the outside, that just was not me. I didn't like it. And I didn't pay him any more attention after that. Until one day I had to go to the home improvement store. I think I went to Lowe's or something like that. And there was a guy with an Element. He had the back end open and the seats folded up. And he was loading drywall into this thing. And I looked in there and I was like, good grief, that is a really practical vehicle. It's small. It'll fit into just about any place. You can deliver and move stuff around in a city, which I have to do a lot of. And that kind of stuck in my head, the fact that this thing had so much room in the back. It was like a cargo van. And that's kind of where it lived in my head. That the Element was an ugly vehicle, but it did have a pretty practical, usable aspect of it being so huge inside. I happened to be flipping around on Marketplace on Facebook, looking for Honda stick shift vehicles because I like a 5-speed. I like a manual transmission. And I happened to come across a Honda Element, and I didn't even know they made them in a manual transmission. When I saw that, I got looking at it, and this car was on Marketplace for weeks, for $2,000, and it had a caved-in front fender, and it had blown-out back struts. The check engine light was on for the catalytic converter. Had bad brakes, rotten tires, just a plethora of issues. It was nasty inside, nasty. It had been sitting for at least a good 2 years. The kid that owned it said his uncle gave it to him when he learned how to drive, and he drove it for a few years. And then he bought another little car, and so he just didn't need the Element, and it just sat there. So he decided it was time to sell it. And I came along and bought it. First thing I did was put a set of struts in the back. It had clearly been used as a work vehicle to haul massive loads. I mean, you could tell by what was in here. There was like brick debris and drywall dust, and the back struts were blown out. There's a trailer hitch on it that's gotten a lot of use, you can tell. This front driver's seat is wore out, so there was clearly a big dude here driving this thing. The armrest was rotted away to nothing. When you pulled the diff stick, the oil in it was just black, black, black. It had not been getting regular oil changes. Once I got it home, I had to start fixing all the things that were wrong with it. It had to have a new set of struts put in, which I did. It had rotten tires, so I went to the junkyard and scrounged up some decent tires. The VTEC solenoid started leaking, so once I fixed the leak, it promptly went out. I had to replace it. I ended up putting 2 or 3 different VTEC solenoids in it before I got one that actually worked correctly. The driver's side door lock broke right after I got it, so instead of fixing that, I got the keyless entry. You may notice that it's not all the same color. That's because when I bought it, this front fender was caved in. I ended up finding a green one at the junkyard. I put that on, and then I hit a deer, which destroyed that fender. So I put this one on from a 2006, and I didn't like it at first, but the longer I messed with it, the more I decided that I did like this weird-ass color combination. So I bought the rear fender, put that on. Also put a set of mud flaps on it, just because I kind of like that look. It's got a new set of headlights that have the black accents in them. If you come over here to the passenger side, you'll notice that it's pretty much stock. It's got the gray plastic and the blue doors. It looks like it ought to look for a 2003. If you come over here to the driver's side, well, it looks like it was put together by Dr. Seuss or something. There's the Lego mobile for sure. The roof plastic's been switched to black. I haven't gotten black for the bottom yet, but I will. I want to switch those out to black. Replace the VTEC solenoid, which frankly is going to need another gasket soon. Put new motor mounts in. They were blown out all the way around. Working on blue silicone hoses. Had to put a radiator in it. Had to put a radiator fan in it. Had to put an air conditioner compressor in it. Let's see, what else? The battery, I switched up to a much larger 24F group type battery, which lets it start a little better. Swapped out the clutch master cylinder, the clutch slave cylinder, the clutch. O2 sensors, had to put O2 sensors in it. Constantly getting door dings from jerks at the store. Put a set of brakes on it all around, just power stops, nothing fancy. A couple of the more interesting modifications I've done is the addition of this little button. And what that does is if you're inside the Element, you can push this button and it'll open the door. I also put this in, which is a manual lock like you would find on a Honda Odyssey. My Odyssey has this. That's where I got the idea. This hole was drilled because I was going to put a little light or something or button over here. I put the VW lift struts in there to try and get a little more height out of it. It works just fine. Mine were going bad and it was conking me in the head all the time. Didn't care for that. Had to peel off all the stickers and put my own on there that just reflect my personality a little better than the ones that were on there. For some reason, I don't know, Elements just attract stickers. Why is that? Put this JVC radio in here. It's Bluetooth, does everything I need, does hands-free with this microphone addition that I've run up into the dash. Put new speakers in it. The door cards inside are black. I've been slowly working on changing the interior from the gray plastic to black plastic. The dash panels are green. Other things I've had to replace include the resistor bank for the air conditioning, the HVAC fan, the lights for all the controls for the HVAC system. I put a new clutch on the compressor, then I ended up replacing the compressor. Had to put a new hose on because one of the hoses failed. This may sound like a lot of repairs for this car, but keep in mind, this is a 20-year-old car with 300,000 miles. It's got questionable service. Since I've had the car, there's things I've learned about the Honda Element. For example, I was not aware that there was a big kind of cult following of these vehicles. People like to take them and turn them into mini campers and all kinds of stuff. There's just a crazy, crazy culture growing up around this car, which is interesting to me because years ago I was big into VW Bugs, the air-cooled VW Bugs. I even had a couple of Volkswagen Rabbits. And that culture kind of reminds me of what I'm starting to see pop up around the Honda Element. The VW culture was interesting because it kind of focused around meetups and everybody kind of showing off their cars, looking for rare OEM options, you know, little weird things you could buy for a VW Bug from the dealership that were hard to find, hunting down parts, parting out cars that were kind of totaled or rusted out. And I'm starting to see a lot of that with the Honda Element. And this car's only been out of production for not even 20 years. The last ones were made, I think, in 2011. So they're making custom pickup trucks, they're adding turbos, they're putting full-time all-wheel drive in them, they're turning them into campers. It's such a cool thing to be able to see this, where I think we're kind of on the leading edge of this. For the last maybe 5-6 years, it seems, people have been getting more and more into these cars. So if you're looking at Honda Elements and you see the culture that's sprouting up around it, and you think the car looks kind of cool, or perhaps it just practically suits some of your needs, should you get one? Well, keep in mind that the first ones were made 20 years ago. And a lot of them have 100, 200, 300,000 miles on them. If the car came from up north, you're going to want to crawl up underneath it and check for rust, particularly on those rear lower control arms. The mounts, where that mounts to the body, tends to rust out pretty bad. There's actually a recall on this in Canada. If your car comes from down south, most of the rubber parts are going to be questionable and need to be checked out. It's an old car. You're going to have to put some money into it to keep it on the road. I've had to put a transmission in this, which was the most expensive thing I've had to do to it, because I didn't do it myself. I bought the transmission, I took it to a buddy's shop, and I had him put it in. And that whole repair cost me $1,200. $600 for the transmission, $600 to have him put it in. And that's the friends and family rate. That's cheap. I've had to do a lot of that sort of work on this car, but I don't mind because I don't have a car payment. I'm seeing people pay $500, $600 a month for a car these days. Well, I don't spend that much on this Element. I gave $1,900 for this car. I've probably put about another $4,000 into it. That may sound like a lot, but that's close to 4 years of maintenance being done to it on a car that really didn't have much maintenance done to it to begin with. I need a little van that I can pack full of crap and deliver that crap in the middle of the city. I can get into parking garages with it. I can park on the curb and not be bugging everybody. You can load in and out through the side doors so that you're not having to run around back all the time. It's just a really handy city delivery vehicle. It really is.
For the world, I'm Jerry Buscarin.
So you might be saying to yourself, well, hey, Clint, if you like this Honda Element so much, don't you think Honda should bring it back? Don't you think they should make a new one? Don't you think there should be a 2024 Honda Element? Wouldn't that be awesome? And no, I don't. I do not think that they should bring it back, and here's why. See this thing in front of me? The reason that all these cars look exactly the same is because of EPA standards, and those standards are not going to change just because Honda wants to bring back the Boxmobile. I was big time into the air-cooled VWs, and they disappeared for a few years, and then in the 90s, VW brought back the Beetle. But really all they did was bring back an Audi with a kind of Beetle-y looking body. It had a front-wheel drive, water-cooled motor, and aside from the slightly rounded shape that made it look sort of like a Beetle from far away, it didn't have any of the traits that a VW bug lover wanted to see in the car. Do you really think that if Honda brought back the Element, it'd have these cool suicide doors on both sides and all of that? I just don't see that happening. Same goes with stuff like the new Bronco, the FJs that came out a while back. None of these vehicles have anything to do with the name that's being applied to them. They're kind of a nod to some nostalgia. They slap the nameplate on a vehicle that has nothing to do with its heritage and legacy, and they just roll with it. So no, I'm perfectly happy buying old pieces of junk like this and trying to fix them up and keep them on the road. But what I'd like to see is a much stronger aftermarket for these cars. Better parts, more availability. That's what I'd like to see. TikTok video of the moment. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this week. If you follow the channel much, you know there's a whole lot more I did to this car than what's been listed in this video. Watch other videos. You can watch me changing out dashboard parts, axles, front struts, ball joints, steering knuckles, you name it. That's what this channel is all about. The point of this channel is to help you keep your Honda Element on the road. And if you do, and if you're patient, and if you take your time, and if you do a little bit of studying and buy a few tools, you can get your Honda Element to go 300,000 miles if you avoid the deer. But even if you hit the deer, you can do something about it, right? I did. I never did show you this, did I? I swapped out my map lights for blue LEDs just to stay with the freaky blue theme of what I've been doing here. The back ones are normal colors. I'll also mention that yes, there are commercials in my videos. I get a few complaints about that. My channel is monetized. I make about $100 a month on this thing. So until next week, this is Clint Searcy telling you your Honda Element can go 300,000 miles. If you do a little basic maintenance, keep up with your oil changes, and don't run into the damn deer, you can make it to 300,000 miles. I promise. See you next week.